Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Better Ales and Lagers. I'm your host, Brendan Smith, here tonight to talk about a couple of great beers, of course provided always by the Thirsty Growler. A couple other great companies I want to mention tonight. Union Growler Company. I normally have one of their growlers to show, but a friend of mine is borrowing it because they're putting great beer in it and hopefully drinking it and enjoying it. But Union Growler Company is a local company here in Dallas, Texas. It's non-profit. They provide growlers, and the profits from those growlers go to local area charities as well as veterans charities, which you can guess Buy My Clothing is something that's near and dear to my heart. I'm a Navy veteran. Two other companies I wanted to talk about. I'm wearing one of their shirts tonight, Grunt Style. They've got a wonderful, great party coming up called Grunt Fest 5. It's going to be in Denver, Colorado. You can find the tickets at gruntstyle.com, as well as awesome t-shirts like this one. Though you can't get this one unless you're a member of Club Grunt Style. This was the March. This was their St. Patrick's Day. They were trolling Killians because, forever killing you. So have fun with that, Killians. Anyway, also ThreatCon 5, hashtag Wear the Grenade. Chad Kozra, a good friend of mine on Facebook, has a great veterans clothing company, does a lot of good works for his fellow veterans. So, moving on to our beers tonight. First, I want to talk about, as I do every week, I like to introduce you guys to one beer from the national scene and one beer from the local scene. We'll start with the national beer first this week, coming to you from, I believe it's Kansas City, Missouri. Tall Grass Brewing Company. They've got what's called their Raspberry Jam. It's a raspberry Berliner Weiss. Now, people come into my bar all the time and ask me, Brendan, what the heck is a Berliner Weiss? Well, as the name suggests, it's from Berlin, and it is a Weiss beer, or a wheat beer, but this one's going to be a bit of a sour wheat beer. Tonight's one's not too bad, though. It's not too high on the pucker factor. It's going to be kind of a sweet tart because you got the nice raspberry sweetness from the Berliner Weiss. Nice thing about the Berliner Weiss, actually, anytime somebody tells you that Miller High Life is the champagne of beers, you can tell them, well, Napoleon's troops called the Berliner Weiss the champagne of the North. So, no, Miller Lite is not the champagne of beers. That would be a Berliner Weiss. As you can see, it's a golden, kind of ruby golden ale. Normally has a nice straw head, though it dissipates quickly, as you can see, because I poured the beer before we started the video. It's very light to medium mouthfeel. High effervescence. You're going to have a bit of that lacto acidiness. For those of you who don't know, and because I'm trying to introduce a lot of people to craft beer, when we talk about sour beers, we're generally talking about one or two different strains of bacteria. And people go, oh my God, bacteria. But remember, there's good bacteria as well as bad bacteria. So the first strain is lactobacillus, and that's what we're dealing with here, and we call it lacto for short. That's kind of give you more your pucker sour. The other was Brettanomyces, or what we call Brett for short, and that gives you kind of almost like a wet horse blanket kind of flavor. I know it sounds weird, but it's actually quite tasty, especially in certain beers that I've reviewed previously, like Collective Funky Thunder. So this one's, like I said, it's going to have a very light mouthfeel. It's going to be very refreshing, very crisp. Some light sweetness to mellow out the tart and the acidiness. Just going over my notes here. It's really just what you'd expect from a Berliner Weiss. It's very light, very crisp, very refreshing. Really good summer beer, especially if you've done a lot of hard labor in a hot Texas day, or wherever you are in the country and it happens to be steaming hot. I've had plenty of my 90-degree humid days in Boston, Massachusetts, as well as down here in Texas. So, but let's give it a sniff. So definitely get the raspberry fruitness on it. You're also going to get a little of that pungentness that you get from the acidity from the lacto. But you can tell this isn't your typical, how shall I say, balls to the wall sour that's just going to be high on the pucker factor and make you look like this. So it's going to be more of a sweet tart than it is a straight sour. So let's give it a taste. So first thing I notice, tip of my tongue is going to be that raspberry. As it slides across my tongue, very light, very effervescent, which is where Napoleon's troops come in with the champagne in the north. Once again, sorry, not sorry, Miller High Life. And then it's got a very crisp, very dry finish, very easy to drink. I mean, it comes in about 4.5%. You could pound these all day, and it's a wonderfully flavorful beer, and you can drink them all day and not get drunk. Just a really fantastic summer beer. Any time around, but especially during the summer when it's hot and you want something nice and crisp and refreshing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have a little more. So that is the Tall Grass Raspberry Jam. Really great beer. Highly recommend you trying it. You can find it on the Thirsty Growler right now if you're in the DFW area. We're up on 121 in the Colony, across from Lava Cantina and Nebraska Furniture Mart. It's on tap number 12. We have just a little bit left, but if you get in there soon, we'll still have some for you. And we'll get it again. We've had it before. Now, another beer I really want to get into tonight is the Irish Goodbye from Peticolas. Now, this is our local Dallas beer for this evening, and I chose this for a reason. It's a seasonal from Peticolas. They only brew it in February and March, and it is their St. Patrick's Day seasonal, if you will, which makes sense, being it's an Irish red. But it might be the best Irish red I've ever had, and I've been drinking Smithwick since it first came to America, 12, 13 years ago, maybe 14 now. I've had multiple Irish reds, and no, Killian's doesn't count. Sorry, Coors. But when you think of an Irish red, you think of this wonderful ruby color. You're going to get a head that's going to be off-white to a little bit more of a yellowish color. You have that kind of nice golden color with this head, although sadly it's dissipated because I poured before the show. But what's very traditional to Irish reds are this malty sweetness, a little bit of caramel, a little bit of toffee. But I generally find they're more effervescent than the Irish Goodbye. They're a little harder to drink. There's some harshness to them. This one, though, really embraces the ale more than the lager. And a lot of times the Irish red can almost be, have the effervescence of a lager. And I find in that situation, it can be very hard to drink. Or in drink in large quantities, just because it's very harsh on the mouthfeel. It's very harsh going down your throat. But this glides across your tongue and down your throat like silk. It's extremely easy to drink. It's extremely smooth. And it's just a lovely beer all around. So when you smell it, you can get a nice deep breath into it. And, you can get that malty sweetness. You get some little caramel toffee to it. And then on the taste, there's some mild effervescence, and I do mean mild. I mean, you can tell it's carbonated, but it really is velvety across your tongue. You get the caramel and the toffee like you would expect, but the wonderful brewmasters down at Peticolas, and Mike Peticolas is one of my personal heroes because not only does he brew great beer, but he fights all the nonsense in the courts in Texas because he's a lawyer and a lover of craft beer and a lover of independent brewers. So he's kind of one of my personal heroes. So if I'm doing a little hero worship here, get over it. Mr. Peticolas deserves it. This beer is just a wonderful representation of the Irish red style. It is so easy to drink. It's flavorful. It slides down the throat. There's no harshness to it at all, like I would expect with a Smithwick's. There's nothing about this beer that I can say, gee, it's bad. And what I really like about it is, unlike some other Irish reds where the IBU is almost nominal. I mean, every beer is hopped, of course, because otherwise you'd be drinking syrup. But they've cranked up the IBU just a little bit. There are 27 IBUs. They're really at the high end of what you would consider to be an Irish red. Because usually you would say maybe, I think per the Brewers Judge guidelines, I think they come in at about 5 to 20 IBUs. So 27 IBUs, you're really above the high end of that. And what that does is it balances out the maltiness of the beer so that on the finish it's very clean and very crisp and very easy to finish. There's no heavy lingering sweetness. It makes it very easy to drink more than one. For those who don't know, and I try to educate people who haven't drank a lot of craft beer, and my blog, a lot of craft beer drinkers watch my blog and go, wow, you got a lot of stuff I already know. I know, but that's because I'm trying to talk to people who don't drink a lot of craft beer, because I see people come into my bar all the time and they say, Brendan, I drink Bud Light, what should I drink? And then I have a very well-meaning regular or two who are absolute craft beer nerds and love it to death, and they start talking to this person in these high, lofty brewery terms. They talk about IBUs and ABVs and SRMs, and you can just see the look on this person's face as their eyes glaze over. It's like a NASCAR race. There's just and they're thinking, I have no idea what you're talking about. So when we talk about IBUs, that's International Bittering Unit. And what International Bittering Unit does, it doesn't tell you how hoppy a beer tastes or how hoppy a beer smells. It tells you how bitter the beer is. And the way that's measured is when you hop a beer at the very beginning of the boil, there's an acid that's created as a byproduct. We can measure that acid. And that measurement gives us the IBU, the bittering rating. That tells us how bitter the beer is. So normally Irish Reds are extremely malty, extremely sweet, and there's very low bittering. So even a increase of 7 IBUs from the top end of the scale from 20 to 27 can have a serious impact on the finish of the beer. And in this case, it does a world for the beer to balance it out, to make it very drinkable and very enjoyable. So I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. We're going to have more coming in the next few days. We're going to be filming on location at the Thirsty Growler. I've got some folks lined up to do interviews with from breweries like Brain Dead Brewing, from Epic Brewing, from Deep Ellum Brewing, and hopefully, maybe if I'm very, very lucky, I have to contact them and I have to talk to them, but maybe if I'm very, very lucky, I get to talk to Mike Peticolas himself from the Peticolas Brewery. So I can't make any promises, and I can't say that they've said yes to that because I haven't even asked them, so don't hold me to that. But I would really be thrilled to do so, and I would love to bring Mr. Peticolas and his views on the craft beer world and his vision for craft beer to my viewers, because he's a really cool guy. He's extremely passionate about the craft beer world, and he makes some damn good beer. So, folks, have a great night, and as always, drink more beers, and please drink independent beers. Keep your money in-house.